Joe?
Yeah, I say have at it.
November 12th, 2019, 3 p.m. Building Advisory Board meeting. I'm calling to order. Roll call, starting on the right end.
Ryan White.
Mike McCall.
Kevin Cool.
David Miller.
Greg Nichols.
William McBride.
Next item, approval of the minutes of the September 10th, 2019 regular meeting.
You need to go back just a little bit. There's a new item B on there. It's something.
B, I'm sorry.
It's something to do at the commission
I
meetings. They
missed
want to
that.
do it all these things, so you just have to read. B.
Chair requests staff confirmation that Kansas Open Meeting Act required notice has been properly provided.
Yes, it has. There you go.
Okay. Approval of the minutes of the September 10th, 2019 regular meeting.
I move we approve the minutes as written.
I'll second.
Any discussion?
Who was the second? Kevin.
All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Minutes approved. Any opposed? Minutes approved. Okay, public hearing items, none. Quasi judicial matters, none. Legislative matters, none. Administrative items, none. Preliminary discussion items. And I'll turn that over to staff.
If you want to turn to your staff report for agenda item 351, staff has recognized that within Chapter 31 of the Salina Municipal Code, Section 31.900, weeds and Article 10 appeals interact frequently, but in application are unclear and confusing. In order to address this, staff has looked at the code and associated processes. Attached are several documents that have either been revised or created to help refine the process, enhance transparency, and ensure easier use for the applicant, BAB, and staff. The documents attached for your review and discussion include Salina Municipal Code 31-900. We have a draft proposal for a code amendment to hopefully kind of clean that up a little bit. Appeal hearing order of business that have a draft and an original, and then city manager determination form and BAB findings worksheet. We'll start with Chapter 31.900 of the Salina Municipal Code entitled Weeds. If you look at your attachments, there's one looks like this. One's called draft, and one has original text on the top of it there. I don't know if you guys have had a chance to read through this prior to the meeting or not. I know that whenever we had our last appeal hearing, we kind of went through this weed code, as we like to call it, a little bit. But it's kind of cumbersome. It jumps back and forth, and it was just kind of hard to read. And we kind of cut out a few items in there, rewrote it, so it's a little bit easier to read. Attached is the original version of code along with the proposed draft. This code section has been revised to address various issues from compliance to administrative points of clarification. More significant amendments include addition of the procedure for appeal to the city manager and clarification of residential zoning districts. No changes have been made to the Article 10 appeals. If you look on the one that's labeled draft, on the original one, in item B2, it read any portion of the right-of-way located in a residential or commercial district upon written finding by the city manager that a barrier, open ditch, rough terrain, steep grade, or similar condition related to topography of the site makes access to the right-of-way for the purposes of complying with this section unsafe or unduly burdensome. That was written in the code before, but we never really had a way for anyone to appeal to the city manager or a official form or anything like that. On the draft version, on number 5, is where we've kind of split that out and made a little clearer determination way for someone to do that if they feel that our mowing maps aren't fair or correct according to the code, if they feel that there's an appeal to be made there. In addition to, it talks about what zoning districts are, what residential means and what we think it means. And we spelled out zoning districts R1, R2, R2.5, and R3, and those are for the right-of-way exception, where in a residential district, you only have to mow the first 15 feet of the right-of-way nearest your property. But it wasn't really clear before. It just said residential district. We wanted to spell that out about exactly which zoning district that applied to. Those are the major changes in it, other than just kind of reformatting in it and making it flow a little bit better and easier to read. If you guys, I don't know if you've read through it before now, or you've read through it and you have questions about it, I'd be happy to answer them. Again, this is just a draft. If you guys have suggestions or comments or anything, I'd be happy to take that into consideration and make changes. Once this does get into a more final form, we run it past city manager, we will bring it back here for you guys to vote for recommendation to take it to city commission to actually codify it.
So if we review it and our findings go to the commission, not back to the city manager, is that correct?
The city manager is going to look at it after you guys look at it today, and we can make those changes and things like that.
I mean, if we did actually have an appeal in of the city manager's decision.
Right.
And whatever we decided, let's say we decided against the city manager, then does that go to the commission then?
No.
It goes back to the city manager and he can overrule us?
No, building advisory board has the final word
Okay.
on it. What happens is, it depends what their appeal is, really. On that one section, if they feel that a portion of their right-of-way is unduly burdensome or whatever, then they'll go to the city manager to have that ruling done. That is something that is reviewable by this board, but not all grass and weeds appeals have to do with that specific type of appeal. But in any case, building advisory board is the final word of the city. If they don't like after that, then they'd have to go to civil court or something like that, or because it doesn't go to the commission and it doesn't go back to the city manager.
Okay, can I ask, we did have a case that we decided was too steep, so how'd that end up? In favor of the appellant?
Yes, the city amended their mowing maps, and now that is something that the city takes care of and mows.
Okay,
I don't know if you've driven down Centennial, but
I have.
it's all mowed down and
It is.
cut down now.
Good.
But yes, the process worked then. It was just a bit choppy and cumbersome, so we're just trying to work this out so it's a little bit smoother for everybody's sake. But, do you guys have any comments, questions, things you might like to add, going from original to draft or anything like that? Anything you see in the draft that maybe should be added that you think we were overlooked, or you think it's too restrictive, not restrictive enough, anything like that at all?
So Sean, on the original text, Part B, subsection 2, it talks about residential or commercial district. I'm not finding that in the draft version, anything about commercial.
Let's see.
Is that correct?
Yeah, I don't see anything about commercial, and I'm curious as to, has this ever applied to industrial, or is industrial exempt from this?
No, industrial is not exempt from that. This applies to, the draft applies to everywhere in the city, and then if it gives exemptions to residential, then those exemptions are for residential. Everything else in here, if you read it, applies to everywhere in the city. It doesn't say, let me see. Yeah, I mean, if you read just section A, it is the duty of the owner, agent, or occupant to maintain all premises, including easements and rights of way adjacent thereto, free from weeds, turf, grass, in excess height of 8 inches, so on and so forth. And then number 1, except for in zoning districts, residential zoning districts, R1, R2, R3, you only have to mow 15 feet. But anywhere else, other than those places, you have to mow the whole right-of-way and your property.
Right, but in the original text, you have an exception for commercial property. In Part B, you have the right-of-way, except Part 2, which says residential or commercial, upon written finding of the city manager that a barrier, open ditch, and so
Right,
forth.
that's what Part 5 says in the draft.
Okay,
In a residential or commercial district, that, meaning either one can apply for the exemption that it's,
But they can't in an industrial?
right, well, it didn't spell that out in either one.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
I think they would listen to a complaint from anyone, basically.
Yeah.
But that is something that I'll write in there to maybe talk about. Okay. Is there any other comments or questions about what we have there so far? Again, whenever we get, I'll make that addition, and then I'll run it past city manager's office, and then once he's okay with that, if he has any additions or changes or whatever, then we'll bring it back to you guys for approval to go before city commission for a code amendment. This is the way this will play out. And like I say, even when we come back again, whenever I get this done, bring it back. If you guys see something else, I mean, it's still not a final draft until it is a final draft. So if you see anything else, even if you don't mention it today, fine. But if you see something else in the meantime or at that day, then, you can still make comments or suggestions or whatever. So,
Well, it might just be that, in that first line of number 5, if you just stop at right-of-way, period, delete located at a residential or commercial district, then that would include everybody at that point, wouldn't it?
right,
So everybody would have the right to appeal?
right. You wouldn't have to
Right now, the
spell
way
out
this is
each.
written, only residential and commercial districts have the right to appeal?
Right. I mean, yeah, that could be something you could just strike that instead of adding industrial or each part,
Each
whatever.
individual
you can
district,
think
just
of.
leave it
Right,
for everybody? So
Right.
everybody's got the right to appeal at least?
okay. Well, I'll discuss that with them and see what they want to do. Okay. If is there any other discussion on this? Does anybody else have any other thoughts or ideas or input? If not, we can move on to the appeal hearing order of business. Attached is the original appeal hearing order of business. We call it Attachment B. This document has been revised into two separate complementary documents. The first is the revised order of business document for the BAB to follow when holding a hearing, and the second is a document describing the overall appeal process. I believe that's probably in the last page of your packet. It looks like this. And it's specifically designed for applicants looking to understand the whole appeal process. Regarding the particular steps within the order of business, staff's proposed changes are minor in an attempt to make the process more efficient while maintaining an opportunity for all sides to present their case. I don't know if you remember during that appeal process, having the chair read through this, it was a bit difficult to get through just because of the way it was worded and the way, I don't know, the way it was worded. So we try to clean it up and make it more clear, but still keep everyone's fair process and order here. Get through introductions, making sure everybody has the correct paperwork, and then asking for statements from each side, and then board deliberation and decisions. So, you can kind of read through that and see if you guys have any questions on that. This is also something that we'll bring back before the board. The board has to approve their own appeal hearing order of business. But once it's absolutely finalized after you guys' comments or things today, then we'll bring that back before the board and you guys will vote on that as well. The last more colorful page there that I showed you a little bit ago isn't really something for us to ever vote on here. It's more of just a handout for the public to kind of describe the process. The main order of business is the actual order of business that I wanted you guys to kind of take a look at today. It's pretty straightforward, the kind of the changes that we've made. But if anybody,
Looking at this they're talking about picking 3 people.
yes,
Well, we didn't do that.
no.
In the future, we do that?
Yes, in the
So
future.
not everybody's gonna be on the appeal?
No, we would probably handle them at the end of a BAB meeting, and then, everybody else can go, and then the 3 people that are on the board would stay behind and hear the hearing at that
So it'll
time.
be
That's
chair
only-
and 2 other people that'll be
Yes.
on that?
Right, and this is only for Chapter 31 appeal hearings. If it's for a Chapter 8 or building code appeal hearing, then it'd be the whole board. But just for property maintenance code stuff is only a 3-member panel.
So what we did last time should have been a 3-member panel, is what,
Correct.
yeah, okay.
And like I say, the chair can have him or herself on the panel and pick 2 others, or it can be 3 people, not the chair. So you guys just have to decide that. Whatever people on the panel that you feel would be able to best decide the case. It's not always about grass. It might be about, picking up trash in your yard, or it might be, a dilapidated structure, or a landlord-tenant complaint about not fixing, whatever. But anyway, you guys have to decide who'd be the best to hear that on the panel, and then go from there. But the other items here kind of go along with what we had been talking about already. The next one on the agenda here is a newly created form. It's a final order and findings worksheet that the building advisory board would they would help fill out with staff's help following an appeal hearing meeting. Basically, the chair of the panel would fill out the top 2 portions there, say whether or not it was substantiated or unsubstantiated appeal, and then check A, B, or C is to say why it was either approved or denied. Those A, B, and C, those all come directly out of the code. It talks about, and also on the appeal request form, it talks about was the true intent of this chapter or the rules legally adopted thereunder have been incorrectly interpreted. The provisions of this chapter do not fully apply, or the requirements of this chapter are satisfied by other means. Whoever fills out the request form has to check one of those things, and you have to agree or disagree on that. And then on the bottom, the findings of the board, we'll help with that in a staff report. We'll include possible findings of support, which is a backed up code as to why it was decided this way. And also we could help to try and find, backed up for both support and denial to help you guys make a good decision. And then basically you guys will write a little note at the bottom saying what your decision was and why you made it. And that way it'll be, clear, be in the records, and we can use it to refer back to other things, and also give a copy to the applicant to let them know a clear decision on what happened and what's going to happen from here. Like I say, this didn't exist before, but we thought a little clarity was necessary in order to get these appeal hearings finished up. The final item on there was the city manager determination form that was on the new draft. It talked of the code in I think it was section 5 there. It talked about city manager determination. We didn't have any way to appeal to the city manager before, or a good way to document his findings on a certain area of land. This is it was in 31900B2 in the original code, and then I think section 5 in the new code. Anyway, requires city manager determination on whether or not a section or a piece of land is either too burdensome for a citizen to maintain, or if a normally exempt piece of land would be included in the maintenance responsibilities of the property owner or property owner adjacent to the land in question. Normally, I think this form would be filled out by a person to exempt them from, and not requesting to mow more property. But anyway, that's what the code, how the code read. But this form will give applicants and staff a clear document to work from. Additionally, this document will make review by the city manager more comprehensive and efficient. This document mirrors the code changes being proposed to Chapter 31 to better address city manager determination. It also gives timelines for the city manager to respond and things like that, so we can get requests and done in a timely manner, get through the whole process and get answers before too much time elapses. But anyway, this was a newly created form to kind of help that along. Additionally, staff will be adding city manager exemption and Chapter 31 appeal process to our digital permitting software, Llama. This provides numerous advantages, including the ability for applicants to apply online through the Llama web portal. Once Llama and the city manager exception and Chapter 31 appeal for decision will be tied to property addresses. This is advantageous from a research and enforcement point of view. No longer will a decision be limited to one folder in one department, rather it will be tied to an address and available for all staff working in Llama throughout the city. So that if anybody working in the city would have access to it, knowing what determinations have been made on a certain property. No action is required at this meeting, but input and discussion is greatly appreciated. Staff will bring back refined drafts based on BAB's feedback for action in December. But anyway, going back through this pile of stuff, does anybody have any other questions, comments, or changes you might like to see that we can refine and bring back to you next month? Other than making sure industrial folks have a way to appeal to. Don't want to leave anybody out. That's a good catch. That is all I have for my my part here.
Next item, number 4, unfinished or other business. Hearing none, public forum. Anybody from the public like to address the board? Seeing none, I would entertain a motion to adjourn.
I'll motion for adjournment.
Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed signify by saying aye. Meeting adjourned.